Yes, welcome to the No State Project here on my YouTube channel, No State Project, and live episode 81. Yeah, 81 already episodes of the big show, commercial free, right here on my YouTube channel. And there we go. There's a little bit better there. A little behind the scenes there, you can see. Glad to be with you. Got a lot of stuff to get to. Some really good news too. I do have a success story, but I don't have any real details, so I'm still waiting on the documentation for that. But misdemeanor charge and the prosecution at the day of, I believe it was the day of trial, decided to withdraw, which was really nice. Again, I don't have all the details. When I have that, I will post that. I want to thank everyone for their support of the show. It is needed. Really, so I do appreciate some of the support, with the support we do get for the show. If you're able to support the show, it's appreciated. Go to markstevens.net and help out. This Friday's show, well, we're going to have the role playing tomorrow at this time. Not a typical broadcast, because this is for court procedure or anything regarding anarchy, or that you want to discuss. And tomorrow is just a role playing. It's just court procedure. But I will not be live. This is going to happen for a while, where every other week I will not be live on Saturday for the LRN broadcast. But it's going to be new material most of the time. And it will be this weekend, but we're going to have to pre-record that right here on YouTube on Friday, 2 to 4. So write that down. 2 to 4. That's 2 hours of Anarchy Radio right here on my YouTube channel, which will then be broadcast in my usual slot on the LRN broadcast. So they're all new. So whatever we missed today, 2 hours commercial. Yeah, 2 hours commercial free. So we won't have any interruptions there for those days there. Now, I don't know. I was just one of those moods. But it seems to be kind of something that I noticed, and I may or may not do a social experiment based on this. But if you post something on Facebook, like to basically an anarchist type audience, and you are anti-veganism, you just want to piss all over vegans, you will get, people will pigpile with you on vegans. The hate is palpable. And, I had someone pull the God card and say that God said it was okay for him to eat animals. Because, well, before the flood, it was not okay, but then God changed his mind that now it's okay to eat animals. And so he said that his ethics were based on God saying that it was ethical to kill wantonly, to kill just to kill. Because God said it was okay. And at that point, you have no rational discussion. You're not, I don't necessarily agree with, you can't use reason to reason somebody out of a position he didn't reason himself into. That's not necessarily true. I think it's broadly true, but not always true. But when someone pulls the God card, they're telling you rational discussion and any chance of having an actual intellectual or philosophical type of, argument with me, gone. Pulling the God card. God told me. So if Odin told me it's okay to kill people and eat them, according to this guy, that's okay because all moral or ethical principles are equal. So Odin told me it's okay to kill and eat human beings. Okay? Don't force don't force your ethics on me. I mean, it's such a stupid cop-out. Don't force it. No one's forcing you. We're discussing principles. We can discuss the principle of anarchy. We can discuss principles of socialism or principles of statism. If I'm on the show discussing principles of statism, that is okay to lie, steal, kill, and cheat people if you're a government. You're not just an ordinary man or woman here. No. You're a government. People are going to turn around and say, don't force your statism on. I'm not doing that. We discussed in the principle. Just like the crap storm that happened last week. You just, and it happened today. I think if we're going to be taken seriously, instead of just, and here's someone who gets way too much attention. I had the biggest word. I had the best words. I got one of the best minds. Everything with Trump is the best ever. It's like talking to a 7-year-old. This is the best painting I've ever done. This is the best. Everything is the best. And everybody initially around him until they get fired are the best. Got this Kavanaugh who lied through his teeth, which is all we need to know is about Brett Kavanaugh, what kind of person he is. Look at what he said under oath for those few days. You don't have to go anywhere beyond that to realize what a lying weasel the guy is. But he has the potential to be the greatest Supreme Court justice in history. But so we want to be taken seriously, and not just by people who are led by the nose by a blathering narcissist. But we have to have precise, logical, coherent arguments for our position. Why do I argue for anarchy? Because, let's see, why shouldn't we have a ruling class? There's so many things we can go. We don't have to have a prison system where where people who haven't hurt anybody are in. Is that we don't have to be bombing in our name innocent people in the Middle East? Is that, wars? So I can give you, it's because they're harmful. They don't, and if the means conflicts with their end. So government, at least in the United States, is supposed to be to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But they have to violate that in order to do, to stay, to be a ruling class and stay in power. So there's my logical, coherent, rational arguments why we shouldn't have a ruling class. Because the means, conflicts with the end. And the end is what we're interested in. Anarchy is more consistent with that end than protecting life, liberty, and property, or life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. But you when you get on Facebook or you just see these ridiculous things where people conflate self-proclaimed anarchists. And so one of the things so the vegan thing is just insane, the amount of hate and the mental gymnastics. What it comes down to, it's an ethical principle of choice. So you bring up, if you have a choice in having just plants, which is proven to be, doable and gives you the lowest risk of all-cause mortality, we have a choice. If you have that choice and you still choose to cause death and destruction to animals, that is unethical. That's not me forcing my ethics on somebody. I mean, you could turn around, you could say, oh my gosh, Jeffrey Dahmer is such a horrible person for killing people. What? But is that you forcing your morals on Jeffrey Dahmer? No, you're making an ethical judgment. You're not forcing anybody, but that's what you get. Why are you forcing your morals on me? Holy, again, we're just trying to have a rational discussion on ethical principles. There's no need. So what they'll do is, but what about this? What about people who can't? We've already established the ethical principle. If they don't have a choice, then it may not be unethical. But they keep veering around the ethical principle. It's just like the ethical principle of do no harm applied to anarchy. Makes perfect sense. All it is an extension of that. So one of the things that I did see today, and again, there's no ire, there's no anger. I was pointing something out. I think if we're going to make sloppy arguments, we as anarchists or voluntarists, we will lose credibility. So I think we need to be very, very cautious because look, people will pull out what you've said before and say, ha ha ha. So one of the things that I saw was somebody what looked to me to be the typical conflating of capitalism as an economic system with the free market. And that they think that it's one and the same. And I had come out and I said, no. Capitalism is, in simple terms, is nothing really too much more. Well, it really, the defining principle of it, which separates it from other economic systems, is the private ownership of the means of production. That is, the other things all come from that. Because a lot of the other aspects of capitalism you can still have in a totalitarian, fascist, or socialist, communist type state. So I read last time the definition of socialism, so let's just look at the definitions, and I'm not going to go through and give the citations. This is on Wikipedia. Let's look at the actual definition of capitalism. And I do want to point out that anytime you look at an academic definition of capitalism, when they use the word free market, they are not using it in the same sense as a voluntarist, an agorist, or an anarchist would use it. They're talking about a regulated government system. Okay? So keep that in mind. Capitalism is an economic system based on private ownership of the means of production and their operation for profit. Characteristics central to capitalism include private property, capital accumulation, wage labor, voluntary exchange, a price system, and competitive markets. In a capitalist market economy, decision-making and investment are determined by every owner of wealth, property, or production ability in financial and capital markets, whereas prices and the distribution of goods and services are mainly determined by competition in goods and services market. So we skip down. Well, they talk about certain types of capitalism. You have the laissez-faire capitalism, which is more of a classic liberal, where it's a minimal number of regulations. Not no regulations. Laissez-faire includes government, as far as I remember. So they laissez-faire capitalism or free market capitalism, welfare capitalism, and state capitalism. Different forms of capitalism feature varying degrees of free markets, public ownership, obstacles to free competition, and state-sanctioned social policies. The degree of competition in markets, the role of intervention and regulation, and the scope of state ownership vary across different models of capitalism. The extent to which different markets are free, as well as the rules defining private property, are matters of politics and policy. Most existing capitalist economies are mixed economies, which combined elements of free markets with state intervention and, in some cases, economic planning. I still believe that by free market, because if you're talking about a black market, yeah, that's different, where there's no regulation or taxation. But what they're referring to as free markets, as long as there's regulations and taxes and whatnot and licenses, not technically a free market. So what I'm getting at is, capitalism is not synonymous with free market. You can take some of these aspects, and you can have socialist communities where you do have communal ownership of the means of production, and you still have capital investment, and you can have a free market where there's no government. I just want to make clear that our arguments need to be better, and we need to not conflate and have crappy arguments. Someone's going to screen cap what you've wrote, and they'll throw it up in your face. Or they'll just, they could just straw man it, but, we're used to that. And if you're on Facebook, you are going to see straw mans like you would not believe. But I have some good news before I get to my calls here. So, I mentioned that this is good. This is good. This is a United States first. Potentially. I haven't looked into this, but I think the authors are right. Maine man cleared of sexually assaulting his wife has reached a $375,000 settlement in his lawsuit against more than a dozen defendants. And who are these defendants? Oh, I tell you, one of them. It's good. Goldsboro resident Vladik Filler sued the county police and prosecutors. This is up in Maine. They don't live there anymore, but his lawyer tells WABI-TV that this is the first case in Maine, or maybe Maine. I don't know if this has ever happened before outside of Maine. I doubt it. First case in Maine where state prosecutors have paid to settle a lawsuit involving prosecutorial misconduct. Wait till you find out who it was against. Filler, who now lives in Georgia, was convicted of assault but cleared of rape charges made during a divorce and child custody battle. Eventually, the assault charge was dismissed. His 2015 civil lawsuit contended he was denied a fair trial. A judge ruled that evidence, this was a federal judge, it was a federal lawsuit. There's a lot missing from this article. A judge ruled that evidence was left out and that the prosecutor made improper statements. The prosecutor was later sanctioned. Who is that prosecutor, you ask, because they didn't put it in the article. And I have to thank my friend Nelson up there in Maine. Thank you for this. The prosecutor's name, Mary Kellet. Yeah. She was finally held to some account for her serial misconduct. This is a woman who has done it many times, multiple times. It's a regular part of how she does prosecutions. Mary Kellet. Nice. So I'll put the links in the show notes, and I'm going to put them now into the YouTube chat, so you can check the article out for yourself, because the article has a video that has video of Mary in it. And Kellet eventually admitted she violated rules of the main bar and was disciplined. Now, I don't know what the discipline was. I'm sure it went like this. Now, you got caught. Don't get caught again. Because then we might have to do something. $375,000. I had filed a complaint against her with the main bar. They didn't do nothing about it. They knew, the Bar Association, they knew, and in that prosecutor's office, they knew all about her. And they let it go. You know why? Another argument in favor of, more evidence in favor of anarchy, not having a ruling class. Because as a ruling class, they have a different set of rules. And people like Mary Kellet can destroy lives. She admitted to withholding exculpatory evidence that showed he was not guilty of rape. That's what you get from these lawyers. That's what you get from a ruling class, where the rules of do no harm do not apply to them. When you allow people to act as if they have a moral right to be immoral, how could you not expect people like Mary Kellet up there in Hancock County, Maine? I think it's Hancock County. It's definitely Maine. Yeah, that's what we're talking about here. Yeah. So, again, if we're going to make arguments, let's be precise. A little bit of fact-checking. Make sure the argument is sound. This way, the only thing you can get in response are straw mans and logical fallacies, where they can accuse, or just say, well, I don't need any evidence to support my claims. But you need evidence to disprove them. That's the kind of crap that you get from statists. So it's really disheartening to see self-proclaimed anarchists using the same defenses, using the same arguments in form, different content, but the same form to defend their crap. Let's be better than that. Let's use better arguments. Let's use evidence. Let's use logic. Let's be better. Our position is morally yes, it is morally superior. Just like we are morally superior than those in Saudi Arabia who kill people for being homosexuals. So yes, I and anyone who believes the same as I do, we are morally superior to people who are immoral and unethical. Killing people because they're homosexuals, that is morally inferior. That's morally reprehensible. That is criminal. And to say, so I don't get this. It's okay to say that murder is bad. It's okay to point out that rape is bad. It's okay to point out that stealing is bad. It's okay to point out that lying is bad. But it's not okay somehow, and all of a sudden now you're triggering somebody and trying to force your ethics on them when you say killing an animal. When you don't force consistency in your argument and your ethics. So let's see what we can do. We'll get to Kevin in Pittsburgh. Kevin, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I was found guilty in appeals court on a traffic violation, and you sent me a motion for post-conviction relief. And then I went down to clerk of courts, and they told me I had to fill out paperwork to give to the appeals court. and then go to the Superior Court and file paperwork and get a copy of the transcript. Now, do I do all those things along with your motion for post-conviction relief, or?
Well, let's see if I understand you. You were found guilty in the appellate court, not the trial court?
Well, it's Pennsylvania, so I went in front of the local magistrate, and then it goes right to the appeals court. It's a trial de novo at the appeals court.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. I had to clarify.
And then now okay.
Yes, you would be filing, since they are the new trial court, you would be filing your appeal and your petition for post-conviction relief into that court, since when they tried you de novo, they weren't sitting as an appellate court.
Okay, it seems like they're asking all that stuff in the paperwork, so I don't know if I filed the motion also along with all the paperwork they want me to file.
Well, run down again the paperwork that they want you to file.
The appeals court, the county clerk of court said I gotta file some paperwork with them, which is $80, and then I do that, and then I gotta go over to the Superior Court and, fill out paperwork there, which costs $90. All right, and then I gotta go and get a copy of the transcript to take to the Superior Court.
Which is the court you were tried in, de novo?
The appeals court, downtown, the county appeals court.
And was that from did you appeal that from the Superior Court?
No, I appealed that just from the local magistrate up the street.
Okay, so how does the Superior Court, so do you have the appellate court, and then is your appeal going to the Superior Court?
I guess that's what they told me. I had just asked them, how do I appeal my guilty verdict at the appeals court?
Well, as far as I understand, I've helped with a lot of appeals. You file everything with the trial court. The notice of appeal is with the trial court, and the petition for post-conviction relief is also with the trial court. Now, there may be a fee for that, and there's nothing we can do except maybe trying to get it waived or have it deferred. Why you would have to file something into the Superior Court may be a particular rule in Pennsylvania that I'd have to verify. I'd have to look that up and verify it. It doesn't seem right. And getting a copy of the transcript, there's not much you and I can do about that. They're going to stick you for that.
Oh, okay.
But the $90...
I had one other thing. Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the $90 to the Superior Court, that doesn't sound right. Definitely get into the rules and verify that that's true before paying anything.
Okay. And then, the local electric company, I've been refusing to get the new smart meter they put in like a couple years ago, and now they've been sending me letters saying I gotta switch over, the time's up, and I got a letter here like last week saying today was my last day or they're gonna shut off. I could face service termination. Is there anything I can do about resisting to get the smart meter?
Why don't you want the smart meter?
Just because they're just transmitting radiation and stuff, and they're toxic.
Well,
and they're spying on us.
Well, they're spying on you in other ways. I mean, they don't need the smart meter to spy on you.
Oh yeah, I know, but they're still using them too.
Is that provable? Is there evidence? I don't know. I'm just throwing out. Can we look at this online and prove that the smart meters are spying on you?
Well, they sent us letters saying you can go online and read everything, and that they're all in connection with each other, and then they report back. They said they communicate with each other. But I mean, the radiation is true. I mean, there's Harvard scientists and stuff all saying, that the radiation coming off the smart meters.
And they can show that is harmful to someone inside their house.
I think so, yeah.
Well, I know that our friend Jan up in British Columbia has fought those and is not. I don't know anybody who's done it successfully. It's very difficult to argue an issue of jurisdiction there because you don't want them to disconnect you from the grid, which I doubt they would do. This one seems like it's not one we're gonna win. I don't know how long some other people were out. It's not something that I've ever delved into personally, so I have no basis in what would happen if you did challenge it, other than to look at what happened in British Columbia. they could just turn off your electric and you're screwed. Now, if you have, if you're in Phoenix, a place like that where you can have, solar and you don't need to be connected to the grid, then you can just say, I don't care. Disconnect that guy. I don't care. It seems to, so I don't know. I don't know if that's a fight that you can win because they'll just cut it's like not paying the water. They're just going to cut that.
Yeah, I wasn't refusing to pay the bill. I just was refusing to let them put a new meter. And I actually welded my old one in there, so I don't know how they're going to get in there anyways now.
They may cut your power if you don't let them in.
Yeah. Well, I thought they were going to come anyways, because they're just going around not even asking permission. But yeah, I mean, there's all a bunch of trees and stuff. They just passed me up because of all the weeds and the debris.
Yeah,
but
I guess
they've been sending me letters like the past 2 years.
I guess you could challenge it. Just say, look, I'm not going to stop paying, but I don't want this, and it's harmful, and if you can present credible evidence that it is harmful, then maybe that'd be enough to keep them from doing it. I mean, it would suck to have to go to court, but if you've got solid evidence that these things are harmful, you may be able to get an injunction against them to prevent them from doing it.
Yeah, I'll see if I want to go that far. But yeah, some states have an opt-out policy, but yeah, mine doesn't.
Yeah, that sucks. And I'm in Phoenix. I wish I had the money. I would go straight solar and not even worry about a meter, but yeah, I'm not in a position to do that right now. I need the show needs support, so it's not something I'm able to do. So I wish I had more to offer you there, but let me know what your research shows as far as the filing something with the appellate court at this time. Because as far as I know, everything is filed with the trial court and then transfers everything up to the appellate court.
Okay, yeah, I'll research more of that.
All right,
thanks a lot.
I appreciate the call, Kevin in Pittsburgh. We've got another new caller here. And if you want to join me on the big show, it's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. Someone is saying here, Emily's saying you can win the smart meter fight. She's kept them off there and that there are legal documents online you can use. Jerry Day has some good ones. Okay, everything, again, you got to look at it as a skeptic with everything. So everything. Well, yes, Stahl, I was saying solar because I'm in Phoenix. We have, 11 and a half months of sunlight here. So, we can get away with it over here. Thank goodness. Although I never thought I'd see the day after growing up on Long Island and living half my life on Long Island, that I would love to just sit and, and watch the rain. But I do. All right. Again, a new caller. I believe it's San Diego, but area code 619. You're live on the No State Project. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Michael calling from San Diego.
All right, Michael. What do you have for us today?
Well, in regard to the previous conversation we just had, I personally suffer from what do they call it? I'm hypersensitive to Wi-Fi. And it took me, for 8 years now, it started out as a small buzz feeling on the top of my scalp. And it slowly got worse. And I thought it had something to do with meditation. I was way off. Because every time I left the building I was in, it went away. And every time I came home, I sat down in my chair, it was super, super strong. It was just 2 weeks ago I decided I'm going to shut my Wi-Fi off. And then the moment I shut it off, the sensation that I feel was lowered from 100% to about 40 or 50%. And when I plugged it back in, bam, my head lights up again. The sensation I get. So I believe I'm surrounded by 12 smart meters plus 6 Wi-Fi's within my building. So I personally believe that there is some health effect in that regard. That wasn't the purpose of my call. I do believe because of this, it kind of affects my study. I've been following you for 6 years.
Wow.
And paying attention to all your videos and listening to your show. I downloaded some of your documents because I had no reason to. I just wanted to have them on hand. And wouldn't you know it, a month later, I get pulled over for turning on a sign that was marked "No turning between these hours." And the moment I made that turn, there was already a line of sheriffs pulling people over. They were doing exactly what I was doing. And so I got pulled over. They wrote me up. I didn't realize at the time my registration had been expired as well. So I went into court. I didn't do like you suggested. I have a hard time because I'm at home and have this tension in my head constantly. It's hard for me to sit and listen to people or interact in a conversation. So I tried studying on my own, away from the house with my iPad and just nail down in my head the right things to say. I wrote it down and kind of had a little script. I went into my arraignment and the lady, the commissioner, I tried to start off with the line of clarification, and she was adamant about speaking over me and rushing me through the process. Ultimately, submitted a not guilty plea and sent me out the door. I just went to court 2 days ago, and at the beginning of the court, there was myself and 3 other ladies that was in trial that day. And I look over and there are 6 sheriffs sitting on the other side. And I didn't recognize the guy that had written me the citation. And I don't believe he was there on time for court. And they asked everybody to stand for the swearing in. And in my mind, I thought they were going to swear us in individually, for each case.
Okay, but hold that point right there. Because I want to get back to the arraignment. It sounds like from what you're saying is that you went into the arraignment and you had not already filed the demur.
No, I did.
Why?
I did.
Why not?
No, I did file that.
You did? I'm sorry.
Yes.
So.
Yes, I did.
Typically what we want to do when they ask about how to plea, we want to say, well, there's a demur, pending, and that the demur has to come first. And again, for anyone who says I'm just pulling it's right in 1001. Prior to a plea, you can demur. You can motion dismiss after that, but you can do demur prior to a plea being entered. So if anyone says
she overruled it.
Oh, okay, so it did come out, and okay. Did you try to plea? Did you say that you intended on pleading guilty?
Yes, I had my copy of my guilty plea in hand, and I was going to go through my list of clarifications. She allowed me to get as far as 2 of them, and then she overstepped me, wouldn't allow me to continue, and sent me out the door.
What were the 2 questions that you asked?
We were talking about the elements of jurisdiction. Oh, the right to the right to be informed. Okay, I don't have them in front of me right now.
Okay, for you and everyone what we want to do when they overrule the motion, we want to object and ask on, is that because the prosecution has sufficient evidence to overcome the demur? If they're not going to engage us.
Here's the problem, Mark. The lady who was at the arraignment, who was ultimately the judge at my trial, was acting as prosecutor judge. There was no prosecutor. It was just her.
Well, because you were at an arraignment.
Well, and at the trial, it was just her.
Okay, was the police officer there?
Yes.
Okay, so what happens in these lower level traffic offenses? See,
yes.
If you have a felony, or you have a very serious misdemeanor, the prosecutor will almost always be there for a felony. But they're not always there for misdemeanors. So there's nothing unusual about a prosecutor not being there for an arraignment. There's nothing unusual about a low-level infraction in California where they don't send the prosecutor. They just let the police officer is acting as the prosecutor. So it's not necessarily that in and of itself is why the judge is prosecuting you. The judge is acting as a prosecutor for different, there's actual evidence that shows that the judge is prosecuting you. And we've talked about that many times. So she would not even entertain the not guilty?
She would not.
Okay. And so she, even though you said that you intended on pleading guilty, she spoke over you and entered a plea of not guilty for you.
Yes.
Okay. So we know that the judge is a lying snake because you weren't refusing the plea. So now we're at the trial, and there's 6 deputies in there, so take us from there.
Okay. So they went to swear in, and the moment the bailiff said, please rise, they were swearing in, everybody raised their hands, and I stated objection. You're trying to draw me into jurisdiction.
That's not what's actually happening.
And he swore in everyone else.
So, okay, by having you swear in, they're not necessarily they're under the impression that you're in their jurisdiction just because you're physically in California. That's the end of the discussion on that. But, you did not swear in, right?
No.
Good. But,
which I feel like, that's a powerful thing. Just by the way they responded to it.
How so?
Now, what took place after that was the bailiff then went back to the back office. They came back out, and they said we're going to hold off on the court proceeding for a little while longer. And it seems to me that had I not done this, they would have proceeded, and my officer may not have been there, but they were giving him time to get there. And when he came in a suit and tie, not even in a uniform.
Hey, he's earning double time, or at least time and a half. So he's coming looking, he's trying to give them their money's worth, Nothing out of the ordinary about that, but okay. So he's late, he shows up.
They went ahead and they went through the other 2 people that were from me. One lady got first dismissed because the officer wasn't there. And they called me up. The officer came up, and I realized that all these cops here are here just to watch me. That officer, he went through, they let him speak first, and then I was allowed to question him. But before I questioned him...
Wait. Let me jump in. Did you object to him testifying at all? On grounds that there's no proof he has personal knowledge of the matters he's testifying to?
I didn't.
You gotta remember this, because let them dig a hole for themselves. And so what he's testifying to is that two general things. He's testifying that the laws apply to you because you're in California, and that you violated those laws. That's what so he has that personal knowledge of that, and the rules require, 702 require that the prosecution present proof that they have personal knowledge of that before they're able to testify. So you've got to keep that in mind. We always have to object based on Rule 602 or 702 about the witness's personal knowledge. Okay, so that's bad. Did you object during any of his direct examination and statements?
You know what? I didn't, because he was just, the way I heard it was he was explaining everything that went down when it went down.
Okay, but you got to keep in mind, Michael, that testimony has to be relevant. So what he's saying has to be relevant. And if he hasn't proven, for example, that the laws apply because you're in, that the laws apply because you're in California, then nothing he has to say about you violating those laws is relevant. You have to build that's the whole, see, people who know how to build a case and how to do it properly, you have to build your foundation first. You have to give the foundational information so that you can show the relevance for what the witness is testifying to. So, all right, so that's bad. You always okay, so you want to make sure you're making your objections during the direct, and so now he's on cross-examination. What happens?
So now I go ahead, I asked him, well, I have to back up here. Before I went into questioning the officer, I directed my statements for clarification again with the judge, commissioner. And I went through my list of clarifications with her. And she responded to each one, except denying to have any idea what I was talking about with the element of jurisdiction. And I had, I don't recall off the top of my head what the last one was. So I went through that, and at this point, I kept thinking about these 6 cops behind me and the pressure she's kind of putting on me. I'm trying to keep my composure, and she just kind of blew off all of my questioning, and I felt like I really dropped the ball here.
Well, I'd have to see a transcript and get more information if it rises to the level of a denial of effective cross-examination, which is a constitutional error of the first magnitude, and no amount of showing a want of prejudice would cure it. But I need more information to be able to do that. I would certainly appeal. Just from what you told me, we have issues for appeal. But I'm lined up with calls, and I don't have that much time left. So if you need a notice of appeal and a petition for post-conviction relief,
this following week, I'm going to sign up your consulting service, and we will discuss this further.
Okay, great. I'll talk to you more about this off air.
All right, then. Ciao.
Thanks for the call. Michael in San Diego, we got to remember to object. We filed the motion of the demur with a request for discovery. And yes, Brady material is required even in misdemeanors. Another new caller. We have area code 727. You're live on the No State Project. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Marc, this is Niall. How you doing?
I'm doing well. And where are you calling from, Niall?
Florida. I left your email today.
Right.
Long one that you said you need to call me, so I'm calling you.
Okay. What can I do for you?
I was wanting to know, since I'm not having the issue of having the money for the funds and the court time's on the 2nd of October. But if I buy your $25 worth of paperwork on the 28th, which I do get paid for, I don't think I'm going to have enough time to put the paperwork in, am I?
You can still argue jurisdiction and argue that you can still do that the day of trial, because jurisdiction can be raised at any time, even on appeal for the first time, because subject matter jurisdiction, for one, cannot be waived like personal jurisdiction can. You have to turn the feed off behind you.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So yes, you still have. Yeah, you can still challenge jurisdiction, of course.
But I'm under the impression, since of everything I've listened to or watched on your videos, that when you do that, they will just automatically deny you because you don't give them enough time. So how do you respond to that, to them?
You're there at the trial. If they're going to assert jurisdiction, which they've been doing for weeks at this point, it should be in the file. There's nothing for them to prepare for. It has to be in the record for the judge to make a determination that there is jurisdiction. So this is how it works. The prosecutor makes the claims and is supposed to base their claims on actual proof. Not speculation, not circular logic and arguments, but actual proof. It's supposed to be in the file. There is absolutely nothing for the prosecution to prepare for when all you're doing is saying XYZ that's supposed to be in the file is not there. All they have to do is it's right here. There's nothing for them to, and they're at trial. They're supposed to be prepared. All you're doing is trying to bring out that the evidence that they're supposed to have from day one is not in the file. And the Brady material is a continuing obligation. They're supposed to give you the Brady material, whether you formally ask for it. You have to, they're required to give that to you. If they know that their witness isn't qualified, they're not supposed to put them on the stand. But at the least, they're supposed to tell you that. So if they argue, well, you should have done this before, we didn't have time to prepare, like, do you have evidence to prove there's jurisdiction to hold me for trial? And if they say, well, that's a trial issue, well, we're here at trial. They have to give you your discovery, even if it's the day of the trial, which in cases like this, which usually is the day of trial, they have to give you the evidence that they're planning to use against you.
So if I cannot turn in that paperwork on the 28th or the 1st, when the court date is the 2nd, so I still have this option to tell them up front?
You can walk right into the court and do it there and say, I object to any proceedings because I moved to dismiss for lack of evidence proving jurisdiction. Yeah, they could say, well, we're here at trial, and that's what trial is for. And you say, well, objection. You're telling me that the prosecution really hasn't, up until this day, hasn't presented a single fact to support their claim of jurisdiction? Why are we here at trial if they haven't presented it yet? If they're dead set on forcing you to trial, at least you have the opportunity. You file the motion, you can still argue it, but if they're not going to hear that, you still object to their witness being put on the stand because they still haven't presented the proof of personal knowledge, and you still keep cross-examining.
I apologize. Are you stating they're still going to have the police officer, come up and witness and testify?
If they're going to force you to trial that day, you're like, we're here, screw your motion to dismiss, take it up on appeal if you lose. Yeah, they're going to if it's not dropped and the prosecutor doesn't withdraw, they are going to be hell bent on getting that cop on the stand no matter what they have to do. Because that is their golden thing. That's why you'll get all these jackasses who turn around and, well, you had to go in court. They believe that just the cop being on the stand, period, end of discussion. Putting him on the stand is the only thing necessary to satisfy due process. I'm not making that up. Prosecutors actually argue that. Well, they will ignore your objections, and that's why I'm saying that in a worst case scenario, they're going to put the cop on the stand over your objections. You can object to leading questions and stuff like that. You can object to questions that tend to bring out something that's irrelevant. The judge may or may not overrule them. He'll probably overrule every one of your objections. And then it's your opportunity to cross-examine him. And sometimes this comes down to you annihilating them on cross-examination, where they will not allow you to ask the police officer questions regarding the claims he made at the traffic stop. You'll ask him for the facts. They will object that it calls for a legal conclusion. And it doesn't matter that your question asks for the facts. The judge will sustain the objection, thereby denying you an effective cross-examination, and that's going to be something you have to take up on appeal. And you have to be able to show, this is the question I asked, asking for the facts. The prosecution objected and said I was asking for a legal conclusion, and that's not true. And the judge automatically, without any discussion at all, sustained an off-point objection, and would not allow me to ask for the facts regarding what happened at the stop. That is a textbook denial. Now,
I get that.
Okay, so we're talking about a worst-case scenario, so it may go that way.
But my question is, even if I keep trying to stop them with that, give me the facts, give me the facts, give me the facts, but what if they keep just saying, well, we caught you speeding at such and such, this is what we pulled you over for, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? They're not going to go to what we're wanting to go to the facts, of jurisdiction.
Well, you're not just talking about the facts of jurisdiction. You're talking about the facts that led the police officer to determine probable cause. You're talking about the decisions that the police officer made, that you violated the law. Okay, so take jurisdiction off the table for just a second. He is testifying that the laws apply to you and you violated them. And the judge won't allow you to ask for the facts he relied on it to make the stop and to support those decisions. That is a textbook denial of cross-examination, no matter what some people say on the internet. That is if they're going to do that, you have no chance you didn't have a chance in hell of prevailing no matter what you did. But if they're going to openly and notoriously and brazenly deny you effective cross-examination, you had no chance. You have no defense with these people. So your only chance is to get it reversed on appeal.
So the key word is reversed on appeal. Is that something that you mentioned to them during the court, or that's to a clerk afterwards?
Well, that's going to be something later. You can maybe, it doesn't make any sense. Look, at that point, you can't dialogue with these people. They are corrupt. They're criminals.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
Reason doesn't mean anything to them. They're going to deny you a cross-examination, which the Supreme Court has called the be-all, end-all of a trial, is the cross-examinations. If they're going to deny you that, yeah, and if you can't prevail on appeal on a denial of cross-examination, you don't even have to show prejudice. It's one of the single worst errors. It's a constitutional error of the first magnitude. If you can't prevail on that, that's just evidence of a rigged system, regardless of what anybody wants to argue on the internet. If they will so brazenly deny you cross-examination and lie, saying your question to elicit facts, is asking for an opinion or a legal determination or conclusion, they're lying to you. If they are so desperate to find you guilty that they're willing to openly lie in front of all those people, rigged from the beginning. You were guilty when you first walked in.
Well, that's just it. I mean, if they know true natural law, but they're practicing otherwise, correct?
Say that again.
Their gain is the so-called. Say again?
Well, their goal is to take money under the guise of traffic proceedings. You're all guilty when you walk in the door. Everyone. See, the most logical explanation for why they do those things and do it so consistently across all political boundaries is because because the trial is a show. You're already guilty. The judge has guilty. So that's why he will deny every one of your objections, no matter how on point it is. He will sustain an objection from the prosecution, even though it's off point, and you can demonstrate it. They will turn around and say things that the prosecutor doesn't have to support, doesn't have to prove their claims. They'll say that they can put a witness on the stand without proof of personal knowledge. But if you and I do that, I have personal experience with this. Other people have. We know that if we try to put a witness on the stand and we don't have proof of personal knowledge, we can't turn around and say, but people on the internet said we could. They don't give a damn. We don't get to do that. It's all double standards and lies because they made up their mind before. And that's why I said as far back as Adventures in Legal Land, the reason why they do that is because they have to get the trial to conform to the decision that was made before the trial, instead of going into it as a fair, independent, impartial decision maker and basing it off of the evidence. Okay, I'm going to try to get one more call in, so I'm going to have to address other questions on an email. Okay. Okay, I do apologize for that. But we've had some email contact. So, and if anything, you can call the show on Friday.
What time?
It's 2 to 4 on Friday.
Your time?
Yes.
Okay, Marc.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
No problem. We'll talk to you then. I'm trying to get one last call. And home bumming it. I'm real sorry. I know you participate in the chats, or the role playing, but we're going to have to get with you tomorrow. I've got another, first caller here. So I just try to get everyone in order. So, welcome to the No Stay Project. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Area code 706.
Brandon. I'm calling from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Brandon, what can I do for you today?
Well, I was kicked out of the trial on Monday for imprudent speeding tickets, so not a real serious charge, but I was trying to experiment a little bit with this one. They entered a plea for me in the arraignment of not guilty while I was trying to question them. Railroaded me to the pretrial, then I told them, let's go to trial. When I stood up, I stayed behind the bar at first, and I addressed the judge, and I said, I never entered a plea. And he said, well, I entered a plea for you. He wasn't the judge that day. I told him, sir, you weren't there that day. And he goes, well, we're allowed to enter a plea if you refuse to. And I said, sir, I never refused to. I was trying to understand the nature and cause of the action against me and jurisdiction being applied under the authority of the Sixth Amendment. And of course, that didn't go over so well.
Well, hold on. Well, Brandon, hold on. We'll take a few minutes to unpack this. Were you in a federal court?
No, this is a municipal traffic court. They don't even have a clerk of court there to file motions or demurs with, whatever you call them.
I don't know.
They want you to file the demur directly with the prosecuting attorney. I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
Is that something you've heard of before?
No, I've never heard where you can file paperwork in a court and not file an original with the clerk. There's got to be someone there so that the judge gets a copy of it.
Nope.
But
apparently not.
We want to. One, I don't think you want to use the Sixth Amendment if you're in state court, because I don't know. It's kind of sketchy on the applicability of the Sixth Amendment to a state court. Fifth Amendment, yes, but because of the 14th. But we don't want to go in, or I don't want to go in, and I don't recommend going in and saying I want to understand the nature and cause of the charges and proceedings. Now, we may have done that at one point, but history has shown that that's not the best way to go. We want to file the motion to dismiss and discuss and get a decision on that. If they're not going to make a legitimate decision based on the record when they decide whether the motion is denied or they just deny it without any indication of the reference to the record, then we go into I intend on pleading guilty. Is there sufficient facts to support the claim that there's jurisdiction over me? So we want to move right to that. The judge has to base, according to due process and fairness, has to base his decision on jurisdiction on the record before him. What in the record proves that there's jurisdiction, and we go into that. So this way, if they turn around and enter a plea for you, you're able to go back later and say, no, the previous judge lied. I never refused to plea. He's lying. That did not happen.
Okay.
And yes,
and I heard that on the call before too, so I did get a little more information from that when I heard that. So I never filed any motions or anything.
No.
So then I said, yeah, I'd like to. I was wanting to get this cop on the stand because I remember hearing one of your other things where you asked him, did you file a valid cause of action against me? And then what are the elements of a valid cause of action? Does that not work anymore either, or what?
Well, we typically don't want to get into that because we don't have the time. I would rather go right for the throat and assume a worst case scenario. Okay?
Yeah.
And there's ways out that they'd like to give the cops. I've gone through and I've asked, did you file a valid complaint against me? And they allow that. Then when you start asking questions regarding that, his prior statement, look, if he's not allowed to answer questions whether the complaint was valid, then don't let him answer that it was a valid complaint. Because now it opens up the door. And I like to go, and look, when you're doing a cross-examination, competency and credibility, that's your meat and potatoes. That's why you're doing a cross-examination. That's the entire point. Competency and credibility. And if he's filing legal documents, and starting all this, he filed it. Is he qualified and competent to do that? Is he competent and credible? How does he know? So if he's testified that he filed a valid complaint against you, then so you're telling me that so my next question could be, and the way I used to do this is, like what you had mentioned, you filed a valid cause of action against me that and the court has jurisdiction. Mm-hmm. Why would he have filed it if he didn't believe that he filed a valid cause of action against you? Because now it comes into his credibility and competence. Why did he file? Did you file an invalid complaint against me? Would you do that? oh no, it's valid. But any questions regarding why he testified that it's valid, you'll start triggering all the lawyers. Or you can't, then don't let him answer that. But to me, it goes to his confidence and credibility because they'll say to you, this is what they'll say to you. You can only ask him questions about what happened on the traffic stop. Right? Don't they scream that at the top of their lungs? Did he write the traffic ticket at the traffic stop?
I guess so.
Yeah. Of course he did. So all they're screaming, you can only ask him about what happened at the stop. Then what went into the traffic ticket is gained on cross-examination. Now, if there are lawyers out there that say, gee, no, I don't care. I look at, is it logical and is it fair not to allow me to do that? So if they're going to get apoplectic, to borrow the phrase, and say you can only ask him questions about the stop, did you write this ticket at the stop? Yeah. Do you believe it's a valid complaint against me? Yes. Really. So, you see, that's why I said to the previous caller, everything is done, the decision for guilt is done in advance, which is why you don't get to answer questions like that.
The beauty of this charge, real quick, Mark, is that it's an imprudent speeding. They never clocked me with a radar gun. So I'm assuming this guy and the way I was going to present it is that he made a legal determination that I was speeding. I mean, he had no proof of me speeding by way of laser or, radar detector or anything like that. So is there any way, strategy you can maybe tell me about how to attack that? Because, I mean, he just basically, in his own mind, said I was speeding. There's no proof of it.
Well, what's important is that he's making a legal claim against you. He's taking a set of facts and applying the law. He's making a legal determination. He is saying you violated a statute. He's saying that the laws apply because you are in Wisconsin and you violated them. That's a legal determination or a legal opinion. And I would rather focus on that. Now, you can get into the merits and how he determined what facts, but now you're going to open up the door for him to actually give you your speed, which the judge can then use to convict you.
He didn't have, because he never clocked me with a radar gun. He saw me go around somebody else on a passing, rate, speed, and I guess, use that. But
Wait, Brandon, what the cops can do is testify. This is very important. Now, they don't always do this on direct, but the ones who are prepared do. They will testify to their training in the academy about how they were scored judging the speed of vehicles. So based on his training, seeing the one car go a certain speed and you passing them, he's able to. So the last thing we want to do is have on cross-examination, have them testify to something the judge can actually use to convict you. Okay?
Sure.
Very important rule of cross-examination is you don't want him to repeat what was on direct. You just want to punch a hole in what was on direct and use his prior statements against him. So I don't.
So to conclude, they kicked me out of the courtroom. I did pass through the bar. I said, okay, I'll approach under threat, duress, and coercion. He didn't want to hear that. I said, I'll pass to your maritime admiralty jurisdiction. I came through the bar.
You're killing me, Brandon.
Well, I'm sorry. I just get,
Did you said
I
this
hate these guys.
I'm pretty short on time. So look, you know what? I just want to wrap this up for a few minutes, but I do want to say, give us a call on Friday between 2 and 4 Pacific time, and we can continue this. I do want, and I apologize to those who are on hold. So, I do appreciate the call. It's Brandon in Wisconsin. One of the things that we absolutely have to stop doing, because it's not going to help. Man, if the game is rigged, if the game is rigged against you because they determined you guilty in advance, which is why they say such stupid things that you can't ask the cop for the facts his opinions are based on. Okay? If they're not, using these stupid things, admiralty and whatnot, look, you can prove, let's go based on logic and sound arguments and evidence. You can prove beyond any doubt whatsoever that All these court proceedings are under threat, duress, and coercion. So that is absolutely 100% accurate, and anybody who says something to the contrary is wrong. Okay? Wrong. Because they will issue a warrant for your arrest. You have to appear. In California, you get a failure to appear. So saying that's fine. We've already done it in the motion to dismiss. We are not appearing. We are participating on a threat, duress, and coercion. Okay? So, keep that in mind. When you're going in there, don't spout this admiralty stuff, because what they're going to do, not only will it not help you, it's going to work dead against you, because they're going to label you a sovereign citizen nut job and that you are a domestic terrorist. It is not an admiralty jurisdiction. Drop this Jordan Maxwell crap. The word history is not an English word, for example. It doesn't literally mean and come from his story. I believe the etymology of the word is medieval French. It is not taking two English words and putting it together. The man does not know etymology to save his life. It is not admiralty. It is not maritime. So please, stop that. Don't do that. And if you're working with me, you should under no circumstances be doing this. Oh my gosh. And real quick before I go, I laid out my reasons why it's a rigged game. You're forced under threat, duress, and coercion to appear there. The judge is taking as irrefutably true the prosecution's claim that a written instrument applies to you just because you're physically in Arizona. I lay out my evidence, and if someone has a problem with the actual evidence and the argument, present it. You get tired of all these. Anyway. Yes, Tom, absolutely. It's the gun. It's the gun. Rigged game. It's rigged even if it's thrown out. The only reason why it gets thrown out is because they can't make it. Some of them have some sense of fairness, of trying to make it look good. And you can't make it look good if you ask, well, Mr. Police Officer, what facts did you rely on when you determined X? You can't make that look good if you don't allow someone to cross-examine the police officer. It's still rigged. It's rigged whether you win or not. It's just the difference is, again, some of the judges have a sense of fair play and realize it doesn't look good, so it gets thrown out. Anyway, I will be live on Friday from 2 to 4, but we're also doing the role-playing tomorrow. But if you're subbed, you'll get an alert that we're going live. So whoever I miss today, I get on Friday. But again, that's 2 to 4 Pacific Standard Time, and we'll get 2 hours commercial free, because I will not be live for the Saturday broadcast. That will be all new material. Again, this is Marc Stevens coming to you live from the Fortified Compound in Mesa, Arizona, for the commercial-free edition of the No State Project, episode 81. And until tomorrow and next time, salud.